What is going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be doing a comparison between the Ford Crown Victoria Limousine and the lovely Chrysler 300 SRT8 Limousine. Now, this one is part of the Motor Pass, so if you do want the SRT8, it's going to cost you basically $10 and hit level 13. And I know a lot of people are wondering, how does this car compare to the Crown Victoria, with the Crown Victoria basically being available to everybody? So some big key differences I'm going to be going over in this video of both the cars on why I personally think the Chrysler 300 is the better car here. I've been driving this thing a little bit and testing out in races. This thing's actually very impressive and it is pretty dang fast. The other big thing is it has a 5-speed transmission compared to the Ford Crown Victoria here that basically only has a 4-speed, which does make a big difference when racing. So I'm going to do a top speed run on both vehicles and then one race in each and get deeper into this talk with these cars because honestly, they are pretty dang different in a lot of ways. I know one's available to everybody. The other one is obviously paid. But you could definitely see a difference in both when racing them with handling and acceleration, all that good stuff. Anyway, let's go test out the top speed on both cars right now. So starting right off here with the Crown Victoria Limo, let's do a top speed run on this car right now. So let's get it going. Acceleration wise, the car really isn't too bad. I'd say it's up there decently for what the car is. It's really not that slow, to be honest. We've seen slower street cars that could probably get smoked by this limo, which is very funny. So let's see if this thing will actually get to here. Obviously, the limos may struggle a little bit in top end and all that, even though they probably should, because I don't think you'll ever see a limo actually doing 240 miles an hour. But luckily on the Crew 2, it is possible to witness, so going around the turn here. It's crazy how good these actually handle for what they are. They handle really good, which kind of freaks me out a little bit. So top speed right now on the Crown Victoria Limousine is going to get you to about 247 miles an hour. I like how I said 7. But regardless, that is pretty much it. You could top it out like 245. If you're really pushing for the extra 1 or 2 miles an hour, you're just going to burn through your nitrous. So 247 miles an hour for the top speed on the Crown Victoria. Now jumping into the Chrysler 300 SRT8, and sir, I am actually sitting in the lane illegally, so I understand these people are getting kind of frustrated with me. But regardless, here is the top speed run on this car right now. So first things first, you guys will notice the SRT8 sounds really good. May not necessarily sound like a Hemi that much, but I do like how this thing actually drives. Having a 5-speed makes this thing much easier to drive than the Crown Victoria, and I do think the acceleration seems to be a bit better on this car overall than the Crown Victoria, but they also do seem pretty similar for the most part for what I've been noticing. So let's do a top speed run on this car now. Top speed really doesn't make too much of a difference, honestly, with these vehicles. I do think the handling on this car is also a little better, which I'm going to do races in both to test that out. So top speed run on the Chrysler SRT8 here. You guys will notice that the Crown Victoria is going to take the crown here. No pun intended at all. Did I really just do that? But 240 miles an hour for this. The Crown Victoria is at 247, which 7 miles an hour really won't make too much of a difference depending on the race, especially if handling is better on one car compared to the other. So I actually decided to do the sleeper race in both the limos here, mainly because there's a ton of turns, which will definitely put these to the test. And I can also test the speed out as well. So overall, I have to say the Crown Victoria is going to obviously be a big choice for many people, mainly because you don't actually have to buy it with real money. It's just kind of in the store and you can just pick it up and use it if you would like. The Chrysler is definitely going to be on the probably less use side, mainly because it is paid. But I have to admit that car is really, really good, and I'll get into that thing in a little while here right after this race. So here are some of the pros and cons I like about the Crown Victoria, and well, one of the cons is my driving currently. But regardless, I have to say this car is actually not as terrible as I think many might think it might be. At least compared to the other Crown Vic, which is going to be the taxi and or regular one you can also use. Those cars are actually pretty dang good for the most part. They actually handle good, they're fast, and they honestly can compete with some of the higher end street cars. Obviously it's a limo, so you're not going to be really racing this thing around crazily, but it can actually compete still and do decent speed and stuff. You guys are looking to do the service races or all that. These cars obviously will get you the tips in those, and I really haven't had any issues completing those either. I'd actually say they did just fine, and they didn't really have any problems at all. I didn't struggle in completing any of them within the time limit to get the tip. So these cars do just fine there. Overall, the speed on them is going to be pretty average. How many times are you going to actually be seeing a limo do 230 miles an hour? Probably not too much, I'd say. Now imagine a stretched Bugatti. Now that would be hilarious, even though I'm just losing my mind now. But regardless, that would be really funny to see. And so let's get into the handling of the Crown Vic. How is it? Well, for being a bus, basically, it's going to be handling, well, as exactly would you expect it. The handling on it's a little weird. Surprisingly, it's not as bad as I thought. These cars can still bank turns pretty well. And knowing the car is actually a limo, it doesn't really handle too much like one sometimes. It actually handles like a car, so a regular car for that matter, which is basically a regular Crown Vic. But for the most part, I have to say the car really isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was kind of interested to see how these limos are going to handle. You guys see I'm flying around these turns pretty nicely. What slows this car down is trying to shift down and get in the right gears. You guys see me doing that right now. And not actually losing that big, enormous power right there. Just makes me kind of angry. I don't even know how to even word that, to be honest. The car just loses itself sometimes. So I'm shifting down here. Got to keep the car revving high. The second you shift into the next gear, because how the car is revving and all that, it'll make you lose speed, which can be a little annoying on some of these 4-speeds, which is why I mention that so much. I know many people might be wondering why they might not be doing as good driving these, and that will be your answer right there. Overall, the Crown Victoria, I have to say, isn't a terrible vehicle. The limo is actually pretty good, and at least it is purchasable in the HQ for everybody. I believe this car's like 100 and something K. Really not too bad, and it is good for doing the service race. So the Crown Victoria overall is not a bad car at all, and if you guys are looking to use this thing, you could get all the races and service races done without an issue. So now jumping into the sleeper race here with the Chrysler 300. Now, like I said before, this car is going to cost you the $10 to actually be able to use it. How does this thing actually compare to the Crown Vic? Is it really better, and what are some things I really like about it? So first things first, I have to say I like how this car drives a lot more than the Crown Vic. As you guys see, the brakes seem really good on this thing as well. I did mention that the Crown Vic has brakes that are pretty good. I mean, they're really not bad for what the car is. I just think this car is better. When it comes to handling, I don't know why, but for some reason the Chrysler, I believe, is a lot better. Like, I just flew around that turn, no oversteer or anything. I got pretty good builds on these as well. So right here with speed-wise, see the car will slowly climb similarly to the Crown Vic. Hitting the brakes there, I actually slowed down pretty fast. What really makes a big difference with this car as well, like I mentioned, is the 5-speed in it. I noticed it's easier to do these turns with it, and you don't really struggle with shifting down. So shifting into third, I'm not losing that huge bit of power like I was with the Crown Vic, and definitely a big jump there. Having an extra gear really does make a difference on these, so I have to say that the Chrysler is definitely going to be better in a lot of ways than the Crown Victoria. I would have to admit that I'd probably pick the Chrysler over the Crown Vic if I had to use it in a race or in some type of event or something like that. This would probably be my go-to vehicle for that. Now, unfortunately, obviously, it isn't the Motor Pass, and you will have to buy that to use this thing. But I do think this car is definitely worth it if you guys are looking to, you know, if you actually have the Motor Pass, you're like, well, what if I should use the limo? Definitely try this thing out, and you'll love the sound of it as well. I know it's probably not the greatest sounding Hemi, if it even is sounding like a Hemi. But it does sound pretty dang good compared to the Crown Vic, and I went way too fast around that turn there. Caught itself pretty fast overall. So I have to say, obviously, the Crown Vic will beat this car in top speed, but I think the Chrysler beats it in pretty much every other aspect. 5 miles an hour really won't make too much of a difference, because when will you actually be racing one of these like that? Even in these service races, you really don't have time to go that speed unless you're on the highway or something, and even then, won't be for too long. So I had 211 there. Fly around this turn immediately there. Let's keep it going. Sometimes you mess up a little bit, well, at least I do with some of these turns, going in too fast, stuff like that. But nonetheless, the car seems to catch itself pretty dang good. I have to say, the Chrysler definitely takes the crown here. Sorry, Victoria. The Crown Victoria just doesn't get any crowns, unfortunately, except the one in the name. Regardless, this car is basically going to win this here. I have to say, it's pretty much better in every way. The only thing that car is going for is everyone can get it in the HQ, but this car basically is better in handling. The speed, except for the top speed, the regular speed on this thing, I believe, is better. The brakes seem a little bit better on it, and it overall handles insanely good for being a limo. When I actually drove this thing in that one race I was doing, I was really surprised how good it actually did. Like, I didn't think it was going to handle that well. So I'm going to show my settings next. Overall, guys, the Crown Victoria and the Chrysler are both great vehicles. You really can't go wrong with either one. I have to say, if you're looking for the better one, the Chrysler is going to be your biggest option here. I mean, this car is awesome. Going through this lovely loading screen now, I have to say the Chrysler is going to be your best option here. This car is great. It is definitely worth it if you do have the Motor Pass. Definitely test it out. Try out the Crown Victoria and put them together, and you guys will see where I'm coming from with how this one is definitely better in ways. The Crown Victoria has a lot of flaws with that 4-speed and how this thing actually drives. This car will beat that thing in turns, except you're not 5 or 6 miles an hour. Really won't make too much of a difference in a race. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Which limo do you guys like driving more in the comments below? Here are the settings I'm running on my Crown Victoria Limousine.